Hey, folks, God is not finished with that little nation of Israel. You haven't figured that out yet? You're not paying attention. He's not finished with them yet. Let me read you something out of the Daniel study guide I have right here in front of me. We know from Ezekiel 36 and 37, as well as many other scriptures, that God is not finished with his chosen people, Israel. Ezekiel's bones have already stood upon their feet, in my opinion, yet they are still awaiting the spiritual breath from God that will be breathed into them one day very soon. It's actually going to happen around the midpoint of the tribulation. So they've got a lot of sorrow to go through before that time and after that time. We're going to discuss some of that in today's program. We're going to be in Daniel chapter 11. Remember, you can get all of these studies on Daniel. You can get the standard Daniel study guide. Doc has a DVD that he's offering. And there's also a flash drive where all these YouTube videos will be on that you'll be able to have right there to plug into your computer if you want to. Those are all on the website. All right. Well, we'll be back in just a moment. So get ready, and we'll be starting Daniel chapter 11 in just a moment. Hey, nice to have you with us today. I hope everything's well on your side of the woods and on your side of the highway, wherever you live. And Doc and I are very excited about going through the book of Daniel with you. We're all the way up to chapter 11 now. So this week and next week possibly will be the end of our study on the book of Daniel. We have the study guide here. She'll put that up sometime for you to see. We've got other materials. Doc has a DVD, all devoted to the book of Daniel that I think will be a big help to you. You know, many prophecy people will tell you that you'll never fully understand Revelation without understanding of some things in Daniel. Mm-hmm. Very important. Doc, let me go through the themes of each chapter, and then we'll begin chapter 11 here. We did an introductory show where we gave some basics, I think. And then we got Daniel chapter 1, which I call Daniel's resolve, where he purposed in his heart that he would not sin against God. Daniel chapter 2, the times of the Gentiles from man's perspective. Boy, oh boy, that's the statue. Yeah. That's what's on the book there, you see. And Daniel chapter 3, the fiery furnace, exciting chapter there. And that every young boy used to learn those stories in Sunday school and even in schools. Number 4, the redemption of a king, a little bit different there. The redemption is given in the book of Daniel of the king. Daniel chapter 5, handwriting on the wall. That's Belshazzar, drinking wine, defiling God's the cups from the temple there. And then we got the lion's den in chapter 6, which shows some very, very intimate things about King Darius and his love for Daniel. And that just opened up to me when I was studying that. Daniel 7, the times of the Gentiles, again, this time from God's perspective. Mm-hmm. Instead of gold and silver, precious metals, value, he looks at the kingdoms of the world as wild beasts.
And that's actually who they are.
That is who that is. If people don't realize that, they're not paying attention even today.
Right.
And then chapter 9, of course, the 70th week of Daniel, which is a very difficult chapter for people. And I hope we put it on the bottom shelf for them.
I think we did a good job with that.
Last week, spiritual warfare, chapter 10. Daniel's prayer took 21 days. There was a battle going on in the heavens to bring Daniel the message that God wanted him to have. A lot of food for thought there. And that brings us to chapter 11. In fact, the very end of my Daniel study guide, chapter 11 and chapter 12. The theme that I give for chapter 11 is the future of Israel. And when I read the chapter, I know there's a lot more in it than that. Well, that just seems like a theme.
It was the future of the world and Israel from their time all the way to the millennial reign in reality.
And I think you mentioned this before. We talk about the 400 silent years. They're really not silent. Yeah. They're mentioned in here.
I had somebody text me yesterday and wanted to know, really, was there 400 silent years? And that's what I said. Well, there was, in the sense that God didn't give an open revelation through a prophet. But he had already given through the pen of Daniel all of the major events that was going to happen not only in that 400 years, but actually all the way through to the millennial reign.
Yep. All right, so there's much sorrow yet to come for Israel. And this chapter deals with much of this.
Yes.
Daniel chapter 11 explains the vision of Daniel, spoken in Daniel chapter 10, verse 1. Mm-hmm. And I don't have my...
Chapter 10, 11, and 12 are all actually one setting in that vision together.
Daniel 11, verse 1, also in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. Mm-hmm. And this is, there are more than one Dariuses in the Bible, so you have to realize this is the first one, Darius the Mede. This is the Medes and the Persians. This is right after the 70-year captivity. And then verse 2, and now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia. Yep. And the fourth shall be richer than they all. And by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. That's the kingdom of Greece.
Because the kingdom that existed at that time, the reason why he says there are 3, is because the first one of those 4 of Daniel chapter 2 and 7 already passed. Now we're in the Persian Empire. Yep. So it's Persia, Greece, and Rome.
Yep. Let's see. And by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. The 3 kings are most likely Ahasuerus, Artaxerxes, and Darius. This is a later Darius from Ezra 4. There's another Darius that you see in the book of Ezra.
Yes,
I think he's Ezra Darius the first or something like that.
And as we pointed out last session in chapter 9, that actually there were 4 distinct decrees, starting with the one to rebuild Jerusalem by Cyrus. There were 3 other decrees between that and the final building of the walls in Jerusalem.
I wrote here, and this is in my commentary, Xerxes was the 4th of these 3 kings, the 3 kings, and then the 4th that it mentions here. The 3rd was the one we read about in Esther.
Yes.
However you say this name, Ahasuerus or whatever, however you say it. Yeah. He's the guy that's going to marry Esther in that story. And he fought with Greece, and we see he goes out to battle. They're fighting Greece, is who they're fighting. And
it's a futile fight.
Yeah,
but anyway.
It's still the kingdom of Persia, but Greece exists, and they're having battles, just like Rome exists, even though they're under, they probably have to send tax money to Persia. And in verse 3, and a mighty king shall stand up, that shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. And I wrote here, this was Alexander the Great, who took power over Greece upon the murder of his father. He was 20 years of age when
out of Macedonia.
Yep, he's going to be 20 years of age when he conquers the known world, which was Persia, and so that will be the end of Persia and the beginning of
the Greek Empire.
So Daniel 11 and 12 is mainly about Persia and Greece.
It is. But also, as we've talked about a dual prophecy, and we were reminded a while ago, not everybody understands what we mean with dual prophecy.
All right, so my wife pointed out that we should just help them with that.
It simply means that there is maybe a partial fulfillment or a shadow of the main fulfillment to come. So when you read it, sometimes you read of Epiphanes and what he did, and people say, well, that's the fulfillment. No, that's the foreshadowing of what the Antichrist is going to do in the future. Yep. That makes it a dual prophecy.
Okay, and since we're right there, let's just move to that.
Well, that's just one of those areas, yes.
And so, in other words, Antiochus Epiphanes he's in the Grecian Empire. Alexander the Great is going to die at the age of 35, so 15 years later. They already must have had this set up in their constitution or whatever, bylaws, but the 4 generals took over the kingdom.
It's obvious because even the Bible has said, when you look in chapter 2, chapter 7, you see these divisions, or they're the heads. Well, those were the four generals because he didn't have any offspring.
Yeah.
Some people say, well, he wasn't married. No, he was married, but he had a very rocky relationship with his marriage, and there was nobody to take his throne.
And he was out fighting all the time.
Yeah. And so these four generals divide up his kingdom. Out of that will come two major sources. One will take over primarily the Egyptian area of it, the other over the eastern or out of the Macedonian area. And we saw this
in chapter 10. We spent a lot of time on that. In fact, I showed him a picture.
And those two are going to battle out until it finally becomes the Roman Empire.
Yeah, the Roman will take over 63 AD, something like that.
Maybe
68, 63.
somewhere along in there.
So they last a couple hundred years, and then Rome takes over. But in the process of that, one of those four generals, the lineage of him.
That's the lineage of him.
Years later, a guy rises up who's over the part of Greece that includes the Holy Land, Jerusalem. And I showed that map when we was on chapter 10 last week, I think, or the week before, one or the other. Might have been chapter 8. I think it might have been. But anyway, and this guy is the guy we know of as Antiochus Epiphanes. It's a tough name here for us.
Epiphanes means he's declaring himself God.
Yeah. And he becomes...
And that's what the Antichrist is going to do. That's why the foreshadowing is so important.
He hates the Jews. He hates Israel. He attacks them. He goes in, he slaughters some pigs inside the temple. He's going to, the abomination, desolation, there it is.
Well, all of these, back up just a moment, all of these wars that are going to take place between what we call the 400 years between the Old and New Testament, this is what's going to take place.
Yeah.
And during all of that time, the thorn in the flesh of all of these is Israel, because they just are never going to be silent in submission to the rulership over them. And so that's one of the reasons why they are singled out and hated by these Gentile rulers.
Look what it says in Daniel 11, verse 31. They shall pollute the sanctuary of strength. He shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. Now you realize when this is being written by Daniel, this doesn't exist yet.
Not even.
And now they're working on it, or they're going to be working on it.
They're getting ready to.
Because King Cyrus is going to ordain to get that going. But so he's talking about a man in the future, this man, Antiochus Epiphanes, who's going to do these things.
He's a foreshadow of what verse 31 is really speaking about, not just only what he's going to do, but of what the Antichrist in the future is going to do.
And so, to be a dual prophecy, what we mean is, yes, this is a prophecy about this Antiochus Epiphanes, but there's a dual prophecy, which means he's also a prophetic of 2,000 years down the road from this guy, the Antichrist.
I see there's 5 major divisions in chapter 11. And the 4th division is verses 30 through verse 39. And this is where that plays in. And it's really foreshadowing of an event, of something that's really going, because when you get to the end of verse 39, you're dealing with the Antichrist himself.
Well, I got some of those highlighted. It just happens to be, like you said, verse 32 and on here. I'll just read the little phrases here. Right. He shall corrupt by flatteries. Now, false, telling something nice, but it's a lie. The people that do know their God,
a politician.
Shall be strong and do exploits. They shall fall by the sword, by flame, by captivity, by spoil. And I wrote, this was true in 167 BC. That's when this happened. And will also happen at the second half of the tribulation, the time of Jacob's trouble. All this Daniel saw in a vision that troubled him so. I wonder, and Doc, I was going to ask you this. I wrote this in the book. I wonder, did Daniel understand that this was a double prophecy?
No, I'm sure he didn't. By no means, no.
And but it troubled him. He couldn't get up. He was so.
Well, because
we talked about this.
He's already been told that this vision is for a time future. That future was more immediate to his point of view than it is from ours today, but it was future all the way out to what we call the tribulation period.
Again, concerning Antiochus and the guy to come 2,000 years down the road, the Antichrist, he says, the king shall do according to his will.
Yes.
And he shall exalt himself and magnify himself
Yes.
above every god, and shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished, for that is determined shall be done. There's no doubt this is also mainly talking about the Antichrist.
Absolutely, it is.
Neither shall he regard, this is verses 37 to 43, neither shall he regard the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women. Now that doesn't necessarily mean what some people
Let's
say it
stop
means.
there just a minute, because this is an area where a lot of people, even in ministries like ours, get off.
Yeah.
Because we're living in a time where sodomy is such a rampant thing that they read into Scripture what's not there. What was looking close at it, and of course we're reading from the King James Bible, so maybe that's where they get off. They don't have a King James Bible, but he says the desire of women. It doesn't say the desire for
women. Yeah.
Of women. So in the Old Testament, what was the desire of women? The desire of a woman in the Old Testament, in Daniel's day,
sons.
Was to have a son as an heir for her husband. So this has nothing to do with him being a homosexual.
I agree.
Hasn't anything to do with that.
Yeah.
I make that clear. I have a CD. She can put it up there in a moment. I have a CD on this section right here of these three gods that's going to be mentioned in the next couple of verses.
There it is. She's got it up on the screen.
Because we're living in a time where all of the things, because we're living in a time where the desire of the woman was to have a child, we're living in a time when the desire of the woman is to abort a child.
Yeah.
So this is speaking, I believe, of our times. No longer is that desire of the woman prevalent in our world. Matter of fact, some of our monies that we've discovered out of our tax money has been going all around the world to try to see that this right here is averted.
Yeah.
And so he goes on to talk about three different entities that are coming up. He's going to talk about the God of forces. I'm convinced that's science and technology.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a facet of my life or yours that in some way is not touched or controlled by technology. You can't go anywhere and do any business without technology. Oh, you can still go to your neighbor and swap dollar bills, but you couldn't even trade your dollar bills in at McDonald's if the computer wasn't working.
They can't sell you nothing.
I mean, your entire life is governed by science and technology. Then he's going to talk about the fact that this is another God is going to be finances, money, because these things didn't really exist in Daniel's day, but they do in our day. And then he talks about an unknown God. And I believe that's talk because he talks about the word unknown is like outside of your borders. We're living in a day of globalism where we put sanctions on other countries. We're outside your border, but we by force are changing your government.
Yeah.
This is where we're living. This is talking about our time, setting the stage for the Antichrist.
Now, Doc, you mentioned something very interesting. You mentioned money.
Yes.
Speaking of money, we're at the end of a cycle here, and we've got a pretty good bill coming up, and we're not there yet. We need your help. Those of you who partner with us, those of you who write a check every now and then and help us out, keep us on the air, this would be a wonderful time for some of you to get your checkbook out and see if you can help us. And call the 800 number. If you need to, you can donate there or write a check, put it in the mail. If you need any help with that, let us know. Make it out to Prophecy in the Spotlight. And I really believe, Doc, that what we're doing here is important.
I think so.
I believe we're on the final stretch. I think we're on the final lap of the race.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
I really believe we're supposed to be out here. Doc and I get no salary. We don't take any of this money. The money that comes in goes to pay to keep us keep the studio here and pay the TV bills and radio bills and all this stuff. And if you want to be a part of this, we would love to hear from you. And so the bill's coming up in just a few weeks. We really need some help there for those of you who love what we're doing here. Okay?
Well,
Enough of that.
They brought us this far, and 4.5 years.
This June will be 5 years. That's
we
hard
just
to
believe
believe.
they're going to keep us going.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. I believe we're a very unique ministry. I don't think there's anyone out there that's just like us on television.
Well, there's nobody out there like you, so we're very unique.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah.
And there's nobody out as old as you. I mean,
No, there are, but I'm thankful that we can do what we're doing. And I think from the comments I get, and I don't get many as you do, that we are being a help to people.
We get a lot of comments. We get a lot of messages from people. The girls answer the phones, and sometimes I talked with people. But let's close with something, another dual prophecy from the book of Isaiah, because this brings that out. And there's some lessons here. We'll probably skip those. Well, let me just read a couple of these. God is not done with the nation and people of Israel. That's some lessons here from chapter 11. Jacob's trouble, the middle of the 70th week, is looming. It's coming.
Amen.
Israel as a nation will return to God and take their place in the coming kingdom. Number 4, prophecy is history told in advance. It cannot be changed. Cannot and will not be changed. Many shadows of the coming Antichrist can be seen in this man we call Epiphanes. And I wrote down here, prophecy is history told in advance. It cannot be altered, nor can it be sped up or slowed down.
No,
not by
God's got
any way.
everything's on a timeline.
Yep.
That's why we've talked many times about the elections here, and Mr. Trump one time and then a little break, and now he's back again. I believe all of that has to do with the timing for the global system and everything to be brought into place.
Now, I don't want to miss anything that you had. You had some.
No,
did you have anything else on
I just
chapter
wanted to
11?
make sure that those 3 end-time gods that Daniel speaks of, they are in force
Now, I
today.
believe you've got something on that. Does she have that?
Yeah, that was that 3 end-time gods CD that she was
good.
putting up.
So, folks, if you want more on what he was talking about there, the CD that she had up a few minutes ago, she'll probably put it up again. It's a CD. There it is. It's a CD, probably an hour long or something
About
like that,
Mm-hmm.
and about what he was just talking about the God of forces.
I mean, it's interesting to see that what he says of the Antichrist here is what we're seeing happen right now.
Yeah.
So that Antichrist kingdom's in force.
Well, I want to settle something right now. A lot of people, and when I read some of these passages, I think the same thing. Boy, Donald Trump seems to be doing it. I do not believe he's the Antichrist.
Oh, no. I
now,
do
could
not.
he be? Sure. We don't know. We're not told who he is. But I'm telling you, I think Donald Trump is a King Cyrus, not a Antichrist. Cyrus is not a type of the Antichrist.
I think you're right. There's a lot
however,
of parallels there.
Cyrus led the way for the coming of Epiphanes.
Exactly right.
And I believe Donald Trump will lead the way. Now, he could be the next man in line.
At the moment, America is still struggling to hang on to the dominant force in the world.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to handle bringing us in.
I think
but
America just took it back.
we did.
Now, that don't mean we'll have it for long.
No, I don't mean we'll have it.
But right now, the nations around us are bowing down and submitting to the dollar.
Now, we're watching a lot of kickback on some of his ideas concerning Israel and the Gazans, Palestinians. I told my wife last night, we were watching some YouTube clips, and I said, it's pretty obvious. I understand why nobody, not even an Arab nation, wants the Palestinians.
Yeah.
And I said, now you can see when this picture, when God said to take the lamb, they were to slay every one of them.
They're taught from little kids to kill and
you
hate.
will never break this chain.
Yeah, it's sad.
No.
Well, some things about Donald Trump and Cyrus that are very interesting. When Donald Trump took office the first time, in 2017, January 20th, he was exactly 70 years old, 7 months, and 7 days. That's how old he was.
Yeah.
That's interesting. A lot of things here.
Right.
He gave us in the first year of his reign, he put Jerusalem as the capital, moved the embassy there.
Yes.
A lot of presidents talked about that. Nobody did it.
Nobody
Donald Trump
would do
did
it. Yeah.
He did it in record time. They couldn't believe how fast he did it. And by the way, Cyrus, that's what King Cyrus, when he came on the scene,
In his first year.
In his first year, he gave the Jews their land back and helped them build the temple.
Yep.
Same thing that Donald Trump has already done, or put Jerusalem back as the capital. I believe if Donald Trump is a type of, and a dual prophecy of Cyrus, I believe Donald Trump will have something to do with the temple being built.
I won't be a bit surprised.
Yeah, and I expect it in the first year personally, but not necessarily. But I really think that this year we're going to hear him talk about it, say it, maybe put up some.
So we're watching right now because of the alignment of the planets and whatnot. February 28th is going to be something won't happen for another almost 40 years. And it appears that this is a section of war. And I see that, in my mind, the Gazan war is going to kick back and Hamas is going to be finally eliminated. And then the next phase of Cyrus is going to step in and make the way for what you just said, that temple.
Well, I see here in 2 Chronicles 36:22, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom and put it also in writing.
Yeah.
And I see that as Donald Trump executive orders.
It's very possible.
Right there. Yeah. And then you turn the page to Ezra chapter 3, verse 7, and we see something interesting. We see they gave money also unto the masons, and it talks about him providing what they needed to go back and build the temple.
This is what we're getting ready probably to do.
Yeah. And
I can see.
In Isaiah 44, verse 28, we're running out of time, but this is a prophecy of Cyrus 100 and some years before he was born, 175 years before he took power. Cyrus is mentioned by name. He don't even exist yet. And he is my shepherd, it says. God is speaking. He's my shepherd. He shall perform my pleasure. And thou shalt build, and to the temple the foundation shall be laid. Chapter 45, thus saith the Lord, to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand have I holden, spared him from being killed. I really believe God was involved in that.
I am as well.
And so anyway, keep an eye on things.
These are interesting times, exciting times.
Yeah. I think we're living in a pretty important part of historical times and prophetic times. And it could be we're living in a fulfillment, possibly, of a dual prophecy of Isaiah 44, verse 28, and chapter 45, verse 1. Go and read that for yourself, see what you think. I did some YouTube lives on this if you want to go watch them on the channel. Well, we're out of time. Until next time, keep your eyes on them skies.